Hey everyone, I'm Prashant. I'm a senior SDE in ScaleupAlly, and today we are going to do a React JS developer interview with Masudha. In this interview, I'm the interviewer, and Masudha will be the candidate. So let's start with Masudha. Okay, Masudha, tell me something about yourself.
Hi Prashant, my name is Masudha Meher and I'm a React JS developer. I have 3 years of experience. I'm currently working with Deutsche Telekom and I started here as a fresher and this is my first
Okay.
company and I've been working with making UI applications with React, TypeScript and JavaScript
Okay.
and we build big complex UI features and we also work on improving the performance of our React application
Okay.
and I've also achieved 100% accessibility of our React app. And apart from that, I also have some hands-on experience with Node.js, building
Okay.
RESTful APIs. So that gives me an exposure on the full stack development, and we use an agile framework for developing our development process. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
So do you use Git for maintaining your code base?
Yes, we use GitLab for maintaining our code base.
Okay. Okay, Masudha. So let's start with your interview. First, we will focus on React. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yes.
first question is, how does the virtual DOM work in React?
Okay. Virtual DOM. So in our React application, when any update happens, so our real DOM does not updates itself. It basically makes a copy of the real DOM, which is the virtual DOM. And if we are changing any text or anything on our UI application, so the virtual DOM updates first and then it applies on the real DOM. So basically, it checks for the differences that is there. So if there is any
Yes.
difference in the real DOM and the virtual DOM, then only it updates that part. It does not update the whole DOM.
So virtual DOM is lightweight or heavyweight as compared to real DOM?
It is lightweight because if we were to update the real DOM, then that would be a heavy weight
Okay.
because we would be updating directly our UI, but instead we update the copy first, which is lightweight, and then the real DOM.
Okay. So explain the reconciliation process in React.
Okay, so reconciliation process is used in React to update the DOM, and it uses a diffing algorithm. So diffing algorithm, it basically compares the DOM which is there in our application, the HTML tree. So it basically makes a copy of it in the virtual DOM, and once if there is an so in the diffing algorithm basically checks if there are any differences, then only it updates that particular part. If there are no differences, then there is no update happens. So basically we have 3 DOMs in it. First we have the real DOM, then we have the virtual DOM, and then we have a shadow DOM. So a shadow
Okay.
DOM is useful when we have to update a virtual DOM, like when we have multiple updates. So the real DOM, so virtual DOM does not always keep updating real DOM. So virtual DOM, uh, from the shadow DOM, it compares if there is any difference, then only it updates the virtual DOM, and after the whole batching process is completed, then it finally updates the real DOM.
Okay. So tell me something about the life cycle of React.
Okay. So in React lifecycle, it happens in 2 phases. First is the mount phase, and then it is the commit phase. So in mounting the phase, it runs the constructor. So constructor is basically showing a dummy data or the default state that we have, and it displays the data in that way. And then we have the render function. So the render function, it basically does an initial render of our DOM, and then we have component will update. Component should update, I guess. Then so basically, when we are doing any update, like when we are making an API call or something, and we want fresh data, so component did update is.
Masudha, please, can you just explain the life cycle of the DOM of the React app?
Okay, I'm explaining the life cycle only.
I think it's the hooks you are explaining. I just want the life cycle.
Okay, so basically, in the React application, when we are doing the updates, the constructor is called, and then the render function, and then again it is re-rendering, which is updating the DOM that we have, and then finally it is unmounting that happens.
What
At
are the four hooks in React app?
four hooks in React
Yes.
app. um, in hooks that we have use state, use ref, use effect, and then we also have use memo. These are the famous hooks in React.
Okay. Okay. So, Masuda, how will you optimize the performance in a large React application?
Okay. In React application, we can improve the performance in multiple ways. One is we can use a bundler to bundle all the multiple files, basically minifying large JavaScript files into one. And we also use bundler to bundle our entire React application into one single JS file. So in that case, instead of bundling, making one big bundle, we can include code splitting so that the bundle happens, so that we can break the bundle into multiple pieces. And with the help of code splitting or chunking, then those bundles are only called when the user is looking for that particular component. So with the chunking, we can do that, and we also use memoization using React.memo or use memo or use callback functions that are there. So it helps in memoizing our code, and it will not do re-rendering of a React component or functions or some operations that we are doing. Instead, it keeps that particular output in our cache, and if we are calling to that component or to that function, then it gets the data from a cache itself instead of doing re-rendering of that particular function or component.
Okay. Difference between controlled and uncontrolled components.
Okay, controlled components means that React can control the components with the help of use state, and uncontrolled components are the ones that can be accessed. Like we have an input field, so that can be accessed with use ref that we have. So it will have
Yes.
the reference to that particular component.
Okay. 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 And Masuda, how what is Redux? How you use it, and why it is essential to use Redux?
Okay, Redux in React is a state management library, and it
Okay.
helps in managing states between different components. If we have a very huge, complex React application and we want to do state updates, we want to pass data from the child to parent or parent to parent, or sorry, from sibling components among sibling components, then React is helpful in doing so.
But why it is required in React to use Redux?
Because as our application grows, we have multiple components and we have multiple pages, and when we want to share data, then it is useful instead of creating and maintaining states or using context API. We can use Redux. It is very easy for users to maintain and access the data. So yeah, for data sharing it is easy.
Okay. So how you use Redux in React?
So Redux, it does not comes with the React itself. We have to download. We have to install it with npm. So there is a Redux toolkit that we have to download. I mean, there are different types of libraries that we have. So one is Redux toolkit. Then we have Justand and Mobix as well, and we can also use the plain old Redux. So we have to like install it into our application first, and then we go on to create the Redux slices depending on the functionality. Let's say we have a ordering food ordering app, so we will need to create, then we will need to maintain a cart redux wherein user can add the contents on that, and maybe check out redux, and then we'll also have a wish list redux. And so after those redux are created, then we can modify our state, like what will be the value that we'll have in our state component. And then we can also use selectors that would be subscribing to that state to get the data that we want to show on the UI.
Okay. So how we pass, let's say we don't use Redux, right?
Okay.
How we pass the state, the variable from parent to child and child to parent in React.
Okay, from parent to child, we can simply do it with props. We can pass the data from props, and from child to parent, we can either do state uplifting. So we
Okay.
have, let's say, we have a state, and we give the control to the child. So whenever there is a state update that happens from the child, then it is reflected on the parent. So that is state uplifting that we can do. Another way is that we use context APIs. So we create a context on our home page, and then we can consume those contexts in each component. And we can also use custom hooks for we can make our own custom hooks, and we can call it on every component that we want.
Okay. And you worked on many applications in React, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how you test a React component?
Okay, so initially we test our component by there's this React testing library. So we first
Yeah.
test it locally. So we write our own test cases, unit test cases, and then we do the integration testing. So that is a dev testing that we do, and later on we give the code to our QA developers. So the QA, then they do their testing after deploying it on a server.
Okay, but I think you will create a test scenarios, right, in your React
Yes,
app.
yes, we write the test cases, we write the entire flow, and we try to cover all the edge cases in
Do
it.
you use CI/CD in it?
We use CI/CD, but that is handled by DevOps in our organization, so we do not really have any experience
Okay.
working on it.
Okay. Okay. And okay. So what is property drilling and how do you solve it?
Okay, so prop drilling is basically when we pass the data from parent to child, and then again child, and then again child. Basically, we are passing data inside nested components, one after the other. So that leads to prop drilling. So, like if we have like 10 components which are nested inside each other, so passing the data would not look good, like it is not a good practice. And to avoid that, we use redux, and we use custom hooks, context APIs. There are other ways to handle it.
Okay. Okay. So and you how much experience you have?
I have around 3 years of experience.
Okay, 3 years of experience. Okay. And okay, so how do you structure a large React app?
Structure a large React app. Okay, so basically we design the folder structure, like how we want to go about it. We can break our React application into components. Like say if we want to build a home page, so in home page also we'll have multiple components. We'll have a nav bar, so that can be in a different folder. Then we'll have a side navigation, so that can be in a different folder. Then we'll have a home page, and then multiple components in the home page, so that can be divided into further multiple components. And then we'll also have style sheets, so we can have a different folder for our styling. And for redux and reducers, everything, we can have a, like, we can structure a folder in that way.
Okay. Do you use any particular framework for it for structuring the React app?
No
Any
particular.
standard in structuring the React app?
In React app, no such framework.
Okay. 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 So, how do you manage global state without Redux?
Without Redux, the global state can be managed by context APIs.
Okay, but can we use other libraries as well for
Um,
managing the state?
I'm not sure about it.
Okay. Do you use any other tool for managing the states other than Redux?
No, my organization we only have vanilla Redux, and that is what we use.
Okay. 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 So in React application, let's say I have many components, right?
Okay.
Okay. And there are some components that using in that they are using in different components, right?
Okay.
Okay. So what we call them?
Using different components. I mean sibling
Usable
components.
components, right? They are usable components now.
Okay.
Throughout the application, we
Mm-hmm.
are using some components in different components.
Okay.
Okay. What is the what we call it?
We call it child components.
No, not the child component. It's like what we call that component which are using in all over the application.
I'm not sure. I did not understand.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So, Masuda, how many application till now you have developed?
Like not from scratch. I worked on two applications so far. One was a e-commerce website which was customer facing, and another one is admin facing application, which is an internal application that we have. It is not customer facing. It is basically a cataloging site wherein users can create a category, a product, and variant, and same whatever data they create that is visible on our application or on our
Okay.
website. Yeah.
So how you call the APIs? Which method you use in React to call the APIs?
We can use Axios or we can use Fetch. Fetch is
Okay.
a browser provided APIs, and Axios comes from a third party package.
Okay. Okay. And if you use Axios, right?
Yes.
So, what are the types of API you have integrated?
Types of APIs like get, post, put.
No, not like that. It's like REST APIs and
Okay,
other
yes.
APIs.
Only REST API. So we have our application in such a way that we can only use REST APIs. But in my side project, I have worked with GraphQL.
Okay, Graph. You also worked on GraphQL.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Then in did you think GraphQL is easy or more usable in React than normal web applications?
Okay, GraphQL. Well, both of them comes with their own advantage and disadvantage, and it depends what we want to use. So, in REST APIs, what happens is we need to create endpoints for every data that we want to access. Let's say
Okay.
we have a user data that is a different API calls, and if we want to get the products created by the user, that will again be a different API. So in that case, we'll have to create every new APIs every time we want to access something new. But
Okay.
in GraphQL, it does not happen. It gives us an entire structure, JSON format, so we can easily, navigate through that JSON to get that particular data.
Okay. So, Masuda, what is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous APIs?
Okay, asynchronous APIs. What happens is when there is an asynchronous call, so the JavaScript program, it does not run that, like it does not stop for that asynchronous call to get over. It comes back to it after the execution, like after we get the data from the asynchronous API. And synchronous API is that since JavaScript executes line code line by line, so synchronous API they will have JavaScript engine would have to wait for the response from the synchronous API.
Okay, so in synchronous API we need to wait, right?
Yes.
And in asynchronous we don't need to wait.
No.
Okay. So do you have any issues in applying these APIs in your in any project?
Issues. I mean.
There are some scenarios. Let's say I have a scenario
Mhm.
where my company is integrating Stripe for payment gateways.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and we call synchronous or asynchronous APIs in our backend, and our backend calls Stripe APIs.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's say I call an API
Mm-hmm.
to our backend,
Mm-hmm.
right, for creating a payment,
Okay.
making a payment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now the payment is done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I have a different API, right, in the next line,
Okay.
which checks the payment is done or not.
Okay.
So if I use asynchronous, what will happen? If I use synchronous, what will happen?
Okay, so if you use synchronous, that means your next line, which would be confirmation of the payment, it will not get executed until and unless that synchronous API call is over. So basically, it will be blocking your execution flow. It will block the
The
main.
synchronous is blocking my flow, or the asynchronous.
Asynchronous does not block the flow. Basically, it
Yeah.
keeps a reference that I need to come back to this particular line after my synchronous code has completed execution.
Okay. Okay. Let me just change the question.
Okay.
Okay. You have you have two APIs, right?
Yes.
Now the first API is for the payment, and second API is for the confirmation.
Okay.
Okay. What will you apply? That both APIs should be asynchronous or synchronous.
Okay. So until and unless we do not get the confirmation message from the payment API, we cannot show a rejection or a confirmation from the confirm API. So in that case, we'll have to make that synchronous.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have to make that synchronous, right?
Yes.
So is this kind of scenario you have faced till now? This
Uh,
kind of scenarios and in different application, different APIs.
Not really, because we make all our applications
Mhm. Okay.
sorry, APIs asynchronous only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 And how and what is the benefit of asynchronous APIs?
So benefit of asynchronous APIs is that if we have some large data, suppose I need to fetch a list of products, so the rest of the execution that has to happen, it will not stop it from executing. It will wait for the entire data fetching, and then it will fetch me the data. So in that case, meanwhile, while the data fetching happens, we can show the user that a loading buffer or something, so that user also knows कि okay, I need to wait for some time for the data to be loaded. So yeah.
Okay. This is all for the React. Do you have any experience in JavaScript as well, right?
Yes, yes, JavaScript. I do.
Okay. So let's start with JavaScript.
Okay.
What is the closure in JavaScript?
Okay, closure, basically it's a function that has a reference to its outer function, or you can say that it is a function that is bundled together with its lexical environment.
Okay.
Okay.
So can I also have the global scope in it?
Yes, you can. Yes, the functions that are already there, they can have access to the global scope as well.
Okay. Okay. So in JavaScript, how we call a API? In
In
React, we use access, right? But in core JavaScript, how we call a API?
So the browser, it gives us the browser API, which is fetch. So with the help of fetch function, we can call the APIs.
Okay. And what about Ajax?
I'm sorry, I have not worked with Ajax.
You okay? You don't work with Ajax. Okay, okay, no problem. Okay. And what is event looping?
Event loop. Okay, so when we have any asynchronous calls, so we have two types of things over here. One is the callback queue, and one is the microtask queue, and
Okay.
and we also have a call stack. So whenever our whenever our JavaScript application it is executing, it creates a call stack and it then pushes all the execution context in it. So the event loop basically checks if there is something in a callback queue or the microtask queue, or if our call stack is empty. So whenever there is something, there is a callback function in a callback queue, it pushes that onto the call stack only if the call stack is empty. And same goes for microtask queue as well.
Okay. And what does this keyword work?
So this keyword refers to the window object or the global object that we have in JavaScript.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how it's works? How what it will do?
So the variables that we create in a global scope, so we can access it using the this keyword. Let's say we have x is equal to 10, and we want to access it, so we can simply do this dot x. So it will give us the value which is there in the global scope.
Okay. And what is promise function? How you use it?
Okay, so promises basically again this is used for executing, like it works in asynchronous fashion only, and basically it produces a code, but it takes some time to produce a code. Like it is asynchronous, so it waits for that action to happen, and then there is a consuming code which waits for the promise to resolve and then consume the code further.
How many states it have?
It has two states. One is resolved, rejected, and then there's a three states. Then there is a settled state.
Okay. What is the difference between null and undefined?
Okay, so when we have initialized a variable, until the time a value is assigned to a variable, that for that particular time there is a placeholder that is assigned to it, which is called undefined. So this is helpful when we are hoisting the variable. So during hoisting, undefined is assigned to the variable. That means it is present, but the variable is present, but it does not have any value to it. And null means that the variable, it does not have any, like it has null value. It does not possess any string or boolean values.
Okay. What is the difference between call, apply, and bind?
Okay, so call function basically helps in, like, I know the concept, but I will not be able to articulate it properly. So basically, when we want to attach a function to an already existing object, so we can do with the help of call and apply. The difference between call and apply is that the parameters that call function takes, it is singular, but in apply it can take multiple parameters. It takes an
What
array of
about bind?
bind. It does not modify the object in which we are attaching. It actually returns a new object, then we can call it. So basically it is not mutating it, it is making a copy of it.
Okay. Okay. And what is module in JavaScript?
Module in JavaScript. So the okay, so the React application, it has import and export as the insided in the React application, and module basically helps in translating to the compiler that this is a React application and it has to be treated as
Okay.
a React file and not as a JavaScript file. I'm sorry, maybe I would be wrong.
Okay. 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 So in Java, the main question in JavaScript, but you answered in React. So I can say a module is a reusable piece of code. You
Okay.
know, I ask you about what is the component that you reused again and again in every other component, right?
Mm-hmm.
JS module can export and import functionalities using export and import.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So our last question for today for JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
How do arrow functions differ from regular functions?
Okay, so arrow functions are a single line function that can be defined, and they are not treated exactly like functions, they are treated more like a variable. And just like when we define a function, if we call a function before it is defined, then it will work fine. But if we call a arrow function before it is defined, then it will throw an reference error, because functions are hosted in JavaScript, but arrow functions are treated like variables.
Mm, okay, but does arrow function have their own this argument super? You know, they have.
I'm not sure.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, for today, this is the questions for JavaScript, Masuda,
Okay.
and it was a good experience and good interview.
Okay. Thank you.
And thank you for your interview. Do you have any question from me?
Okay, so Prashant, like, how does your day as a senior developer at ScaleupAlly looks like?
It's a normal day. It's like go to office, start at 9:30, starting with assigning tasks to juniors. Then we have some meeting with seniors and the CEOs, and we have a service based company, so we have multiple projects going on. We maintain them in our we have our own application. We maintain them in a management tool basically, and we use Jira is important for us because we maintain the task timeline, pointers, and hardness and softness basically. And then after some time, when the 5 p.m., 6 p.m., we start a main we start checking the progress and main code. And then also we have our own projects. We check them. We communicate with the clients on regular basis. And then after some time we have uh, you know walking around in time, right? A walk We take a walk basically in ScaleupAlly. We have time for 15 to 20 minutes for walking and whatever we can do. And after that, when we have 9 hours complete, we can go home or we can party with our CEOs and all.
Okay, that
Okay.
sounds nice.
And it's a very good space, very good place for achieving, for getting more project, for getting more, challenges.
Mhm.
So that's it. That's all we have to offer.
Okay, that's nice.
Okay. So thank you. That's all from my side, Masuda.
Okay, thank you. So, Prashant, do you have any feedback for me after this interview?
It was a really good interview, Masuda. There are some points where I doubted that it's not the right answer, but okay. For most of the part, it is a really good interview.
Okay.
It was showing that you worked on some projects in React JS,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. I will send my report to HR.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Prashant.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.